First, I just want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's early in the morning, and with all these point in time counts, you always hope for the best possible weather. But I think we kind of mentioned it in some of the trainings and some of the postings. But we are on a bit of a time crunch with the federal mandate of the last 10 days of January. So it's a rain or shine event, and we thank you all for rallying and braving the conditions to get here. It looks like it's clearing up now, which is good. It made for a rough drive in. So just wanted to thank you all. As we get started, first off, I just want to ask for everyone's patience. I know everyone's eager to get out the door as quickly as possible, and we're definitely going to try and do that. We have a couple things we're going to take care of before we do that. The first thing is we'll do a little refresher, just a quick little recap of some of the things we covered in the training, the documents that you're going to be getting, the maps, the tally sheets, as well as just some general tips, and we'll kind of recap some of the definition pieces. And then the bulk of what we're going to be doing today are forming the teams that are going to be covering the census tract areas. And again, that's a little bit of that's going to take us some time to kind of figure out what our numbers are looking like, how many volunteers, how many guys, and get those groupings all taken care of and getting everyone out the door. So as a reminder, this is the definition that we use of this for this count. We are required to use the federal government's official definition of homelessness for point-in-time counts. So this includes individuals and families who stay in a place not ordinarily used for sleeping. So this includes cars, parks, abandoned buildings, bus or train stations, etc. When you leave today, we're going to have teams that are going to be comprised of both community volunteers and guides. The community volunteers are those that are gracious enough to donate their time as well as using their vehicles to help cover their assigned map areas. And then we also have individuals that are currently or recently experiencing homelessness, and they're serving as the guides of the project and help us kind of navigate some of the areas, and we rely on their experience and expertise to really get a feel for areas to cover and really make the distinguish between someone bundled up and someone that's actually experiencing homelessness. Some teams are going to be volunteer-only teams. Some teams are going to be guide and volunteers. It just kind of depends on what our final numbers are looking like. So just a heads up that we're going to have a little mix of teams that are, some kind of more volunteer heavy, as well as some that are more guide heavy. So all team members, both the volunteer and guides, are kind of responsible for collaborating together and working together to kind of do the tally sheets, cover all your assigned map areas. One of the things we want to emphasize throughout this project is the importance of confidentiality and respect. You're going to be out there. It's going to be pretty early in the morning. Probably for the first little bit or so, it's going to be dark. So just be really mindful of respecting everyone's privacy while you're out there. The nice thing about this account and the tally sheets and all the documents you have is everything is designed to be a visual-only count. So there's no, for this portion of the count, there's no interviewing necessary. We don't need to ask anyone we see any questions. Really there's no need to approach anyone out there and ask them any questions or anything. We also want to ask that no one take any pictures of any encampment areas or any locations where individuals may be sleeping out of respect for them. The next thing I wanted to get into is some of the document pieces. So we have, everyone will receive a map area. So you're going to have a census tract assignment here, and then you're going to have tally sheets that are going to be attached to those. The tally sheets are all pretty straightforward. We have a gender column, age column, family column, dwelling or vehicle type, and then some of the location seen bubbles. And we also have, so, you know, at the bottom of the sheet, we kind of have some of the definition pieces there as well. For this project, a family, one of the things that comes up a lot is the family definition. For this project, family must include a minor under the age of 18. So that can be a dad and their, a dad and his daughter, a couple and their son, but just a regular married couple or boyfriend girlfriend couple doesn't qualify for the family definition. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind. I mentioned that it's a visual only count, so if someone's bundled up in a raincoat, poncho, or whatever, you can't make out a general idea of gender and age. We have these unsure bubbles that you can fill in, and those, so that can kind of be a bit of a catch-all there. The other piece that we have are cars, RVs, and vans. So if you see a clearly inhabited car, RV, or van, and you can't make any determination of who's in there, just indicate, leave everything blank, and just fill in the car, RV, or van bubble. On the back of the sheet, there's a spot for the last 4 digits of the license plate. And we do that so we can, when we get all the information on the back end, we can go through a duplication process and deduplicate any license plates that we see or running across multiple times. The general idea of the tally sheet is that each row is one person. So as you're kind of navigating and going through your assigned area, you can kind of think of that as each row is going to be one person or one vehicle. So that can kind of help you navigate that. The census tract is noted by a big, thick blue line. That's your boundary for this census tract here. Anywhere inside that blue line is free game for you all to cover. And then it's up to your team how you specifically want to kind of navigate that area. We always kind of recommend kind of picking a starting point and then going from there. On some of your maps, you'll note that there's a shelter icon on there. If you see anything like that, please cover those areas first. We want to avoid any duplication issues with the shelters that report numbers to us. So, additionally, I don't know how many if there are any in the Salinas area. There might be a redacted area, a blacked out area on your map. If you see one of those areas, you don't need to cover that. That'll be covered by a specialty team. Some of you are going to get multiple maps. Actually, the majority of you will get multiple maps. So just keep that in mind that we want you all to cover keep your kind of tally sheets and maps together so we can keep track of which ones are together. Additionally, on a lot of these things, you're going to have multiple jurisdictions. So in the example of this, this is kind of a little bit out there track, but this has an unincorporated area, a Moss Landing area, as well as Las Lomas. So for each one of those jurisdictions, each one of those census designated places, you have a tally sheet that corresponds to that. So for this area, we have a Moss Landing tally sheet, a Las Lomas, an unincorporated, and a couple extra blanks in case you need them at the end. That is a little bit of the rundown. I also just wanted to emphasize the importance of safety in this process. Obviously, the map areas, you know, we're kind of covering a lot of the North County. So if any, you know, if there's any areas that you're not, you know, feeling comfortable, your team kind of makes the assessment that you're not feeling comfortable covering or unsafe, we don't want you to do anything for the sake of this project that you don't feel comfortable covering. So there could be some areas where a guide may indicate that they think it's better for them just to cover a certain area solo, and that's fine. There are other situations when you know, the team just makes the determination that, you know, no one's really safe to go there, and just keep us updated. You'll see on the wall over here, I have my contact information here. My name is James Connery. This is my colleague Audra Gallant, and that's her phone number listed right there. And so please feel free to kind of take a picture of those or those numbers and jot those numbers down. And if any questions come up or any safety concerns arise, feel free to call us. Also, if there's a true emergency, of course, 911 is going to be the quickest response, and they'll be able to help you out. Obviously, the weather is going to play a little bit of a factor as well. So I think the majority of these tracks are mostly going to be driving tracks with, you know, a little bit of walking. So just be careful, you know, in the slick areas out there. So the next thing that I really wanted to get into was just the team assignment process. So Audra and I are going to kind of work together on matching up community volunteers and guides, and kind of forming the teams and getting everyone out the door. So our goal is to get everyone assigned and leaving here with map areas to cover. Like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some volunteer-only teams, some, you know, volunteer and guide combo teams. And you know, one of the tricky things that we have to deal with throughout this point in time count is it's a full canvas of Monterey County. So it's not like we're just covering the downtown Salinas area out of this deployment center. We're going to be covering, you know, I think we have some into the, you know, the Prunedale area, Pajaro, and so on and so forth. So, you know, ideally, you know, we can kind of get volunteers with areas that, you know, that they know, but the reality is that many of you are going to get areas that you're not as familiar with. And that's why we just kind of rely on both the knowledge of the guides, and then just also the kind of knowledge of the process that you have thus far, you know, through some of the trainings and other things, just to kind of get a general feel of that particular area. So before we get running, just wanted to give everyone the heads up that I think I mentioned it earlier, but this is a little bit of it's a little bit of a crazy time as we get all the maps situated and teams assigned. I'm going to warn you in advance, it typically takes about 15-20 minutes to get all those groupings set up and everyone out the door. So I just ask for your patience and understanding in advance that I promise we'll get all these teams, kind of everyone out the door and going here in about 15-20 minutes. But bear with us as we kind of work through everything. Yeah, a quick question.
Yeah, tents. How do you want us to handle tents where we can't see inside? Or
Good question. So on the tally sheets, if you see a tent. If you see a tent that it is, and you can, your team makes a determination that there's individuals inside there, you just leave everything else blank and just indicate that there's a tent. And so just fill in the tent bubble. And then after this process is done, we use information collected through an estimate from the survey that we have. We have a question that kind of gets at how many individuals are usually stay in one tent, and we kind of create a little multiplier. So I think on average, number from last year's survey, I want to say the average number of individuals living in a tent, is something about like 1.225 or something like that. So then we kind of create a little bit of a multiplier from that. So that's a little bit of the quick rundown. So before we get going, any other last minute questions? All right. So Audra and I are going to be kind of putting the teams together. Audra's kind of got a general feel of the number of map areas that we need. The other thing that would be really helpful as we get through this is if we can have more or less everyone stay in their spots, and we'll kind of call teams up with us, and so we can kind of start forming teams. The other thing that if I could have all the guides, so if you've kind of signed up as a guide, if you currently or recently experiencing homelessness and you're with us for the paid portion of the project, if we could just kind of have you line up here, stand up and come up here, and then we'll get you assigned to teams as we go. So any of the guide folks can come on up here and then line up, and then all the volunteers can kind of stay where they're at.